Welcome to GC Sidebar, a short and sharp conversation series with leading general counsels about the decisions, the reflections, and the people behind the title. I'm Trista Engel, CEO of Paragon Legal, and today I'm joined by Luis Machado, General Counsel at TopBuild, a leading installer and specialty distributor to the construction industry. Luis's career has spanned construction, manufacturing, retail, and food and beverage, experience building teams and businesses that now shapes his approach to the building industry. Luis, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Let's dive in. What's one issue facing legal teams right now that you think is overrated or premature?
I think legal technology is in the overpromise and underdeliver stage, which, technology is great. It's an enabler. I use it. Everybody uses it. And we like to take on technology relatively early on. But for example, right now, everybody's giving you use cases for AI. And that's great. And there's a lot of experimentation going on and a lot of testing going on within legal technology. But it's still too one size fits all. It's helpful. What it isn't quite ready for is very specific use cases or very specific needs. And so we're looking forward to that ongoing development. But right now, it feels like everybody's saying, you better get on board or you're going to be left behind. I'm not quite sure that's true at this point. I think it will come. And I think there's some great companies, suppliers, people out there working on it and working on it very hard. I'm just a little bit cautious about tying into one particular solution until it's developed a little bit further. I think that's going to come fairly quickly, but right now, today, we're hearing a lot about it, not quite ready.
I like that point a lot because there is so much pressure on legal teams and teams of all functions and stripes to implement AI and implement technology. And you risk a little bit of implementation fatigue because change management is such a big part of this that if the technology is not quite there yet and you're pushing it before it's ready, when it does get ready, when it is there, then it's a little bit harder for the team to continue to test and try things with that sort of change management implementation fatigue.
Yeah, no, you're right. And there's also the initial implementation focus, which is, frankly, can be a real distraction to a hardworking, very busy team. I don't think there's anyone in-house on the planet that will tell you, oh, we've got a lot of time on our hands, we can manage it.
What's the most valuable lesson you've learned as a GC?
You cannot possibly know too much about your business. And I'm not talking about legal, I'm talking about the business that you're in, the business that you are supporting. My proudest moments are when people in the business refer to me as a great business partner. I don't really care if they refer to me as a great lawyer, but I do care that they refer to me as a business partner. What that means is I'm part of the team. And I'm very focused on ensuring that my legal team is exposed as much as possible to the business. Go out on sales calls, build locations, branches, in our case, facilities. If you're working for a manufacturer, go visit customers, visit suppliers, talk to people about the business, not just about the law, right? People will always naturally, they know you're a lawyer, they'll tell you the things they're worried about, but actually understanding what they do every day. What are the things that take their time? What are the things that they wish they had more time to do? Understanding how they approach revenue, how they approach expenses, getting a really, really good feel for the business, frankly, makes you a much better partner and makes you a much better lawyer. When somebody gives you a call and says, here's the issue I'm having, you're not backpedaling to try and figure out how it fits within the framework of the business. And you can provide custom focused advice that will help them, as opposed to them saying, well, I call a lawyer and they just send me in circles and the same answer. So to me, learning, realizing, especially when you're coming out of a law firm where you're, very discrete projects, right? Realizing that this this job, both the GC and things with being in-house legal, really is about having a very good understanding of the business and being very focused on pragmatic, business-friendly solutions. To me, that was a very, very important learning.
And what a great learning to cascade down to your team. Not a lot of in-house lawyers get the opportunity or get the encouragement from their leader to go into the business, go on sales calls, really get in the weeds and try to understand. And that's amazing, both for relationship building with the business, credibility building with the business, but also, like you said, better lawyering because you have that deep understanding of the business.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can't beat it. I mean, hands-on, face-to-face, having that kind of relationship with people at all levels of the business, really does make you much more effective as a lawyer.
Absolutely. What's one career moment that changed your trajectory?
When I went from the firm to going in-house, it really made a big difference. I was very happy working at law firm as a mid-level associate, working in M&A, love doing deals, still do. Once you get the deal bug, it never goes away. I was recruited to go in-house quite a few years ago now, but it wasn't just that I was recruited to go in-house, but it was who recruited me. The general counsel at the company became a real mentor. When I first met with her, I was very skeptical about, do I really want to go? This was in the 1990s, in a while. But, I was very skeptical. Do I really want to do this? This feels like a job I could do with half my brain tied behind my back. Is this really going to keep me interested? Am I going to be bored? All of those things. This was back at what was then called Johnson Wax Professional, later became Johnson Diversity, part of the SC Johnson family of companies. And the general counsel at the time, she met with me and she took me through a 5-year plan to grow the company, to focus on growth, and what my role in that would be and how she viewed my development. That was the first time I had ever dealt with anybody who was clearly very interested in my development as a person and as a lawyer. And as I said, she became a real mentor after I left there and went to other companies. I would regularly call her to get advice or just to catch up and see what she was doing. But I honestly believe that having that kind of support and focus made me, I'll refer to my previous as, a much better business partner, made me good at my role because she was very focused on making sure that the lawyers on her team were very ingrained in the business and really understood what it meant to be within a business and to be part of a business team. So that really did change the way I think about us as a profession, and the fact that not only is it very people focused, but it's very personally focused. You build relationships, you work with people, and ideally you end up not just making good business partners, but making some friends.
That sounds like such a great eye-opening moment for you moving into a different stage of your career in a different part of the profession, just to see how it could be in a way that you hadn't seen before.
Yeah. And I think, I've tried in my own way, as I've worked with people, to make sure that people that I've hired and people that have worked with me to understand the importance of that. And we hope in some way that I've partially done as good a job as I think she did, because I believe that this really this is a profession about people, not about concepts.
I love that. GCs have a wide range of resourcing options beyond FTEs and outside counsel these days. What's your approach to resourcing your legal team?
To me, there is no one approach. Part of what I do and what I think about it, frankly, what I use technology for, we have billing systems and we have tracking systems and all of that. We're very data driven, try to be predictive, even though, the world changes and you have to flex and you have to be able to change your plan or your idea. But we try to be predictive. We try to think ahead and work through those things that we know are coming by being prepared and having the resources available. I don't like to just go out and hire somebody for a specific job unless I know that position will add value and remain. We use outside counsel which is useful, certainly for specific expertise and specific advice. But we've also used some temporary hiring. There's some really good paralegals that you can bring in that can do a lot of work very, very quickly within the company. And there are good temporary legal resources that are available, particularly these days when you can do a lot of work remote.
Yeah.
You're not asking someone to spend the next 2 weeks sitting in an office somewhere really far from where they live. We try to flex and make sure that whatever we need, we provide good, efficient, cost-effective value to the business. And that isn't always outside counsel.
Yeah, the cost-effective part is a pill to swallow. But yes, there are different types, levels, costs of resources for different types of work at every legal team. And it's great to hear your thinking around how you use different versions, how you think about different flavors, and that you've tried different things, because there are a lot of options. If you weren't an attorney, what would you be?
Before I went to law school, I was in sales. I was actually a traveling sales rep. I would probably still be in sales. I like talking to people. I like understanding how different people solve different problems. And really, sales is just about solving people's problems, right? So I've always really, really liked the personal approach. Maybe that's why one of the reasons I really like being in-house as well. I think I'd probably be in sales if I'm not otherwise independently wealthy, which unfortunately so
Yeah, that's choice number one.
yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard a lawyer say that their alternate career would be in sales. Your salespeople must love you.
I do like to go out on sales calls. The fun things to do.
Amazing. And the bonus question, Paragon turns 20 this year. What's one memory from 20 years ago that still stands out to you?
It was actually an interesting year. My kids were young. I'm there now, all grown up. But they were young at the time, and I actually changed jobs in 2006, in early 2006. And in between jobs, I had about 3 weeks of free time, which is one of those moments in time, right, where you're done with one job, so you have nothing to do there. You haven't started another job, so there's nothing to do there. And as you know, as a lawyer, there are very few moments in your life when you quite literally have nothing to do other than spend time with your family. So we were living in Chicago at the time. We packed up the car, we came to Florida and spent a couple of weeks on the beach. And I remember spending a lot of time playing with sand and the kids and just, taking some downtime, which when you're young, you don't quite appreciate as much as when as you get older. But I do remember appreciating that moment in time. It was very, very peaceful.
That sounds lovely. And like you said, such a unique opportunity when there's nothing else hanging over your head and you can really just take a minute and be present.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, this was great, Louis. Thank you so much for being with me and for sharing your journey with us today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for listening.
All right, that's a wrap on today's episode of GC Sidebar. Catch more great conversations on our website at paragonlegal.com. Thanks for tuning in.